the NBA playoffs, the breakout moment from 8 teams from each conference, where 82 games of hard work culminate to legends being made or broken. With that in mind, today on NBA Source, I'm going to give my predictions for the 2017 NBA playoffs. First, there's the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Indiana Pacers. So this isn't going to be easy for the Cavaliers, but in the end, I believe they're going to win. So even though the Pacers are fresh off a 5-game winning streak and just had the addition of Lance Stephenson, the Cavs will still win in probably 5 games. The reason why I say this is because on the Pacers offense, LeBron will lock down Paul George, and Paul George is their main scorer, meaning that they're going to score much less. Then on the Cavaliers offense, LeBron, if he can't get by Paul George, he could easily dish it out to Kyrie or Kevin Love, and those two are going to be a big factor in this series, which are going to allow the Cavaliers to win in around 5 games. Next, we have the Toronto Raptors and the Milwaukee Bucks. For this series, I think the Raptors are going to win in probably about 5 or 6 games, even though Milwaukee's a really good team with Giannis Antetokounmpo, but he can't do it all, and the Raptors right now are really good as they have all their positions covered with extremely good players. And not to mention Jabari Parker still being out with his torn ACL. This is going to be a tough series for the Raptors, but I think they'll most definitely win it. Next, there's the Washington Wizards against the Atlanta Hawks. So these teams are both pretty well matched up in my opinion, but I think that the Washington Wizards will win in 7 games because they have better shooting with Otto Porter Jr. and an all-around amazing player with John Wall, who can run the court and make plays with his team. And with the final series in the Eastern Conference first round, there's the Boston Celtics versus the Chicago Bulls. And with this one, it's pretty obvious. The Boston Celtics are going to win, and I think they're even going to sweep the Bulls. The reason why I say this is because right now the Celtics have it all figured out, and it shows. They're first in the East, beating out the Cavaliers, versus the Bulls, where Jimmy Butler is dragging them to a lot of their wins through his all-star playing. And I think most fans saw this coming. It's clear the Celtics are just going to win. With the first second-round matchup in the East, it's the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Toronto Raptors. This is going to be one of the best series of the entire playoffs, as last year, the Raptors were the first team to beat the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. And this year, I think they can do even more. I believe this series is going to go out to a Game 7, where the Raptors are going to win. I know this is very bold, has a very slim chance of actually happening, but with the Raptors' new additions of Serge Ibaka and PJ Tucker, I think they can definitely do it this year, as last year they were close, and they weren't even as close to how good they are this year. And with the second Eastern Conference semifinals matchup, it's the Washington Wizards versus the Celtics in my bracket. This series, it's pretty clear what's going to happen in my opinion. I think that the Celtics will easily beat the Wizards in probably 5 or 6 games, because right now the Celtics have it all figured out, and this shows in the numbers. They're first in the East, and against the Wizards, I think the Celtics will completely destroy them. And then finally, in the Eastern Conference Finals, I have the Toronto Raptors versus the Boston Celtics. Now, this matchup is pretty even, except for a few components, and one of those is Serge Ibaka. The newest addition to the Toronto Raptors plays so well that I think he could easily help the Raptors have an upset win against the Celtics, putting them in their first NBA Finals. So I think this series is going to go to 7 games, with the Raptors winning in the end, and making their first final appearance in franchise history. Now off in the West, the first matchup is the Golden State Warriors versus the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, this is going to be a really exciting matchup, and obviously the Warriors are going to win, but it's not going to be easy wins. The Trailblazers, though in 8th place, are still a really good team, and with the recent dominance of Jusuf Nurkic, they're definitely not going to let the Warriors go past them without a fight. So I think this series is going to go to 5 games, with Portland just squeezing out a win in one of the matches. The next matchup is the Los Angeles Clippers versus the Utah Jazz. Normally, this series would be pretty even in my opinion, but with Blake Griffin having his ongoing knee problems, thus allowing the Clippers to not play at their full potential, and Gordon Hayward being as dominant with his offensive and defensive prowess now, I think this series will go to 6 games, with Utah being the winner in the end. The next matchup is the Houston Rockets versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is going to be a battle of the two most likely MVP candidates in Russell Westbrook and James Harden. With the versatility that the Rockets have and how many games they've won together, I definitely think that the Rockets will win in the end in a 7-game series, which is going to be another highlight of the whole playoffs. Now for the final first round Western Conference matchup, it's the Memphis Grizzlies versus the San Antonio Spurs. Now with this matchup, I think it's pretty obvious what's going to happen. I think the San Antonio Spurs are going to absolutely destroy the Memphis Grizzlies and sweep them in 4 games. And this is going to be the Spurs' chance to really show how dominant of a team they are, even though they don't get as much media attention as teams like the Cavs or the Warriors, even though they're really just as good as them. Now for the first matchup in the Western Conference semifinals, it's the Golden State Warriors versus the Utah Jazz. This is going to be a very interesting series as Gordon Hayward is such an amazing presence on defense and offense, but the Warriors have an all-star at almost 5 positions. So in the end, the Warriors are definitely going to win, but they aren't going to be easy wins. It's probably going to go to 5 games, but they aren't going to be 5 easy games. And with the second Western Conference semifinals matchup, it's the Houston Rockets versus the San Antonio Spurs. Just like their first round matchup, I think the San Antonio Spurs are going to play extremely well, and they're definitely going to beat the Houston Rockets in 5 games, I'd say. And again, show how dominant of a team they are and prove that they really are an underdog. Now for the Western Conference Finals, it's the Golden State Warriors versus the San Antonio Spurs. Now this is going to be the real test for the Golden State Warriors to prove if they really mesh well as a team under pressure, to prove they don't choke under pressure like last year, and just really to prove themselves as the best team in the league, because ever since Game 7 of last year, there's really been so many doubts about the Golden State Warriors. So this series is probably going to go to 7 games, I'd say, and each of these games is going to be a test for the Warriors, but in the end, I think they'll definitely win. And then there's the finals, the Golden State Warriors versus the Toronto Raptors in my bracket. And this matchup is going to be an absolute battle. Though the Toronto Raptors aren't as good, and though they most definitely aren't going to win, they're still going to put up a fight as they've learned from last year and filled all the gaps that teams have been taking advantage of. So I think this series is going to go to 6 games, and in the end, obviously, the Golden State Warriors are going to be the champions and get their 2nd ring in 3 years. I want to remind you guys to subscribe, and with that, I want to thank you guys for watching, and that's it.